There we go. Making sure the sound is on, so we good there. Okay, let's see here. Yay. Don't need to do that. Keep that, keep that. Keep that. Keep that. Alright. Alright. Let me see here. Oi. Let me fix my mic. Oops. Already moved my aspects here. That should be good. Let's see here. Put you on. And let's see. There should be two more things I probably could do here. Now you're good with everything else. You know what? I like this one. Yep. I like this one instead. One's much more interesting. There you go. Let's see that there. There we go. Think into place. There we go. Alrighty. Love how it takes forever for me to set up, but that is the point. Okay. Wow, it is December 10th. The year is literally almost over. Try you on for a second. There we go. Ah, no! There we go. I can kind of work with it like this. Oh! I can kind of work with it like this. Kind of. Yeah. Yeah, I think this about works. What we need. And I think everything else is good to go. Alright, we are up, ladies and gentlemen. Now I guess there's one thing left to do. Since we were talking about the Ravens, should probably wear it. We only got a few more times to wear this, huh? You know, most of us already have an idea as to where this is going. I don't expect to be wearing this long term, so might as well get this out the way, wear this a few more times before we call it a season, and then we just go from there. Right, here we go. Believe we are good to go. Okay, so I'm gonna get started. My apologies for the delay, ladies and gentlemen. Took a little bit of time here, but you know how it is. You know how it is. Setting up for a live stream can be annoying at times. But it's part of the game. It is part of the game, and you go with it. So, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Ravens flock, welcome back. I hope everybody enjoyed the bye week. Hopefully you were able to unwind and kind of step away from the Ravens. You know, even if it's for a brief moment. This is actually low-key affected. Let me see if I can lower this. There we go. I think that works. Yeah, I hope you guys were able to briefly step away from football and actually enjoy the bye week, because these last 4 games is going to be some of the most stressful, some of the most conflicting, some of the most emotional, and some of the most stressful games you could possibly ask for to end off the season for the Ravens. All we know right now is that the Ravens are guaranteed 4 more games. They've got a game this week against the New York Giants. After that, you've got the Steelers, followed by the Texans, and then you've got the Cleveland Browns to end the season. Now, of course, you got 4 games. You think everything's all cool, everything's great, neat, right? Well, no. Because coming out of the bye week, you realize that the Ravens have 3 games in 10 days. Let me repeat that. They have 3 games in 10 days. So there is literally no room for error. The Ravens need to come back ready to roll because they have 3 games in 10 days. They play the Giants on the 15th, they play the Steelers on the 21st, and they will be playing the Texans in Houston on Christmas Day. 3 games in 10 days. And if the Ravens are not ready to go, well, a season that had a lot of hope could potentially dwindle. The Ravens are guaranteed 4 more games. They have not punched their ticket into the postseason just yet. The only 2 teams in the AFC that have punched a ticket to the playoffs are the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. Both of them punched in the ticket through the playoffs as well as winning their division. So they got in the normal means, and then they went and won their divisions. So that's all good for them. They're pretty much settled for their divisions. They're going to be in the postseason no matter what. But everybody else is still scrambling to make sure they can get into the playoffs. And with these final 4 games left, you can't afford to make a mistake. See, if you take a look at the wild card race, there's 3 teams in the wild card. Us, the Baltimore Ravens, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Denver Broncos. All 3 of these teams have the same record of 8-5. But if you take a look at the race, there's 2 teams right now fighting to get back into it. You've got the Indianapolis Colts, which I don't think the Colts are a team that you really look out for in the wild card. They're more of a team that you look out for as a team that could potentially try to come back and steal the division from the Texans, who are kind of, wavering right now. They're kind of showing some cracks. So the Colts are looking to take the AFC South and potentially steal it from the Texans. But the Dolphins, they've already lost down in the division, but they still got a chance for that wild card spot. And if they win all their games, they can get that potential chance to get the wild card spot at 10-7. So if you're the Ravens, the magic number is 2. 2 playoff wins. Not playoff wins, man. I wish we'd have 2 playoff wins. 2 wins in the final 4 games. You punch yourself into the playoffs. You will punch your ticket into the playoffs with 2 wins in these final 4 games. If I was to take an estimate as to where those 2 wins would come from, I would say this week against the Giants and then on Christmas Day against the Texans. But who knows with this Ravens squad? It could come down to week 18 against the Cleveland Browns and everybody will be sweating in Baltimore because for some reason they'll struggle against Jameis Winston and it'll be one of those type of moments which nobody in Baltimore wants to happen. But for some reason it feels like it could happen. But either way, 2 wins to potentially punch yourself in the playoffs. And maybe, depending on how things go, you might need 3 wins. Now, I believe we only need 2 wins because we do have the tiebreakers. We have the tiebreakers over our other 2 wildcard teams. We beat the Denver Broncos head-to-head, and we beat the Chargers head-to-head. So if anyone's going to lose a playoff spot, it'd be them over us. We have the tiebreakers over them. So we should be fine. I also believe we have a better conference record than the Miami Dolphins, so we should also be fine if the Dolphins are trying to take that spot. Baltimore really just needs to win 2 games, and they've probably secured themselves a playoff spot. But everything just can't end there. You see, right now, depending on how things go in the final 4 games for the Steelers, Baltimore's still in play for the AFC North. Baltimore sits at 8-5. Pittsburgh sits at 10-3. Pittsburgh's last 4 games, they got the Eagles. I believe it's at Philadelphia, at Baltimore, at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then on the road in Cincinnati. So they've got the Ravens, sorry, they got the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and then the Bengals. In order for the Ravens to win the division, they need to run the table. So they got to go 4-0. And Pittsburgh has to lose 3 of their final 4 games. That is still possible to happen because of how difficult that schedule is. Now, you can say whatever you want about Pittsburgh. I said it when we looked at the schedule for the second half of this season for them. I said if they run the gauntlet and win those games, they prove everybody wrong. They're legit contenders. They can go win this whole thing. But if they get beat, they'll be exactly what we thought they were. A team that just took advantage of an easier schedule and won those matchups. So we'll see. These final 4 games will define the season for the Steelers. If they lose 3 of the last 4, they'll still make the playoffs, but they'll lose the division potentially to Baltimore. And everybody that had concerns and skepticism about that Steelers team, they'll be proven right. But if the Steelers win the majority of those matchups, there's nothing to say. They'll win the division, and they'll be a top 3 seed. So we'll have to see how things go. So yeah, Baltimore can make the playoffs with 2 wins, but they're still in play for the wild card spot. And here's the crazy thing about it. Baltimore is still in play for the number 2 seed in the AFC. Remember, they beat the Buffalo Bills head-to-head. So they have that head-to-head matchup against the Bills. It would take a lot, but if Pittsburgh does go on that losing streak, loses 3 of the last 4, and Baltimore wins the division, then what they would need is for the Buffalo Bills to lose 2 of their last 4 games. If Baltimore and Buffalo each share a 12-5 record, Baltimore takes the 2 seed because they beat the Buffalo Bills head-to-head. Now, Buffalo's schedule, I don't know how their schedule looks down the stretch. They've got the Lions this week. It's very possible they could lose back-to-back games. They lost a tough one against the Rams in a 44-42 shootout. They've got the Lions, they've got the Patriots, the Jets, and the Patriots again. Okay, so honestly, other than the Lions game, I don't see how Buffalo's going to lose. They've got the Patriots twice and the Jets to finish off the game. Yeah, Baltimore's not getting a top 2 seed. Even if they run the table, they may get the 3 seed over at Pittsburgh, but they're not getting the 2 seed unless Buffalo slips up. I can see Buffalo losing this upcoming week against Detroit. I could see them losing to the Lions because they are going to Detroit. They are going to Detroit for a 4:25 game against the Lions. I could see them slip up there and become 10-4. But I could see them win the last 3 games and go to 13-4, and Baltimore can be 12-5. So we'll see how things go. Maybe they slip up against a divisional foe. We have seen it in the past with them. It wouldn't be against the Patriots. It would have to be against the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, which could happen. I don't know. But the possibility for the Ravens to get the 2 seed in the AFC is still open. So a lot of moving pieces are still in play. Right now, the Baltimore Ravens, they were the 6th seed, but due to the Chargers losing to the Chiefs, the Chargers dropped to the 6th seed. Baltimore moved up to the 5th spot. It's possible Baltimore at the end of the season could be the 3 seed in the divisional winner, and it's possible Baltimore can be the 2 seed in the AFC. So there's still moving pieces. We would just have to wait and see. Now, other than playoff seedings, we actually have to talk about the team. So Baltimore. You know, this is going to go down as one of the most unique seasons in franchise history. But when you look at previous seasons that are similar to this, you're reminded of the 2 championship teams. Which is why a lot of us look at this and say, the level of adversity that this team has faced, if they can't take advantage of that adversity and go win it all, then that means this era will be defined by that. This is easily the most chaotic season of the Lamar Jackson era, and it doesn't make sense as to why that's the case. Think about that. You're coming off the AFC Championship game loss. You were so close to the Super Bowl. You had the AFC Championship game in your house against the defending champions. You lost to Kansas City. They went on to win the Super Bowl in a situation where if you get to the dance, you probably beat the Niners and you're probably sitting here as champions. But that's a different conversation. You, in the offseason, lose a lot of pieces. Not just you lose a few players, but you also lose major coaches on the defensive side. There's a whole aspect of change. But one major piece you bring in is Derrick Henry. He's supposed to help this offense take it to another level, and that was supposed to be the aspect that you would have coming into the season. Many people had expectations that Baltimore would be one of the premier teams that would be a Super Bowl contending team, perhaps a Super Bowl favorite. But then you look at how the season has gone and the chaotic mess you've seen everywhere around you, and you can't even say that. But the weirdest part about it is the chaotic mess is due to the Ravens' own incompetence. This is one of those years where you can't even look back and say it's an injury aspect. This isn't 21 or 22. Baltimore's been healthy. They've been healthy throughout the season. They have not suffered significant injuries to their guys. Guys have been nicked up here and there, and they've missed small time, but everybody's been relatively healthy. Kyle Hamilton's been battling through injuries throughout the season. He's still been relatively healthy and been able to play a majority of the season. Rashad Bateman's he's dealt with his injuries here and there. He's still been relatively healthy and been able to play a majority of the season. Guys have been nicked up here and there. They've missed time, but not significant time. So this team has been as healthy as they can be, and they've had all the talent that they had last year. Or nearly all the talent that they had last year in terms of the guys that remained. So it's confusing as to how this team is sitting here at 8-5, despite the fact that they've had their talent relatively healthy, and you have Lamar Jackson playing at an MVP level, and you have Derrick Henry playing like a potential offensive player of the year candidate. If you look at the numbers Lamar's been putting up, and you look at the numbers Derrick Henry's been putting up, and you look at the numbers the Ravens offense is putting up, it doesn't make sense why this team's 8-5. But then you take a look at the intricacies of this team, and you start to realize they're a chaotic team. They're somewhat poorly coached, and they lack discipline. Number one, they lead the league in penalties. If you lead the league in penalties, you're going to crash and burn in the biggest moments. Why? Because you're not going to stop hurting yourself. The fact that this team continues to commit penalties is going to be the downfall of them come January. If that doesn't get fixed, come playoff time, they're going to commit 12 penalties, and they're going to lose the game. It's going to happen. In the biggest moments of the season, they're going to commit penalties defensively. How many times have we seen throughout this regular season where we've seen pass interference calls, holding calls, in situations where you need the defense to make a stop, and yet for some reason, they fail to make a stop? Have they made a stop all season? Have they made a stop all season? Because every time they've come close to making a stop, guess what? Penalty, pass interference. So the penalties are an issue. If there's anything they should have addressed during this bye week, it is the lack of discipline that they're showing. These penalties are unacceptable, and if it continues to be a case, there needs to be consequences to these penalties. Unfortunately, we haven't been seeing any consequences to these penalties, so I don't know if it's going to be fixed. But that's been a huge aspect as to why this team's sitting here at 8-5. Another huge aspect that is the primary reason that they're sitting here at 8-5, the defense. The defense has been atrocious for much of the year. They've been one of the best run defenses in football, but part of that comes from the fact that they've been one of the worst, if not the worst, passing defenses in all of football. They were getting badly exposed for a majority of the year. The worst of the worst was against Cincinnati. In games they somehow won. And in the games they lost, the defense couldn't step up and was getting cooked left and right. That is an aspect that needs to be fixed. The good news about it is it seems like they finally started to figure it out. So that is a good thing for them. They started to figure it out defensively. I don't know why it took you, 12 weeks to realize Marcus Williams is the problem and he needs to be benched. I don't know why it took you 12, 13 weeks to realize you should run two high safeties with Kyle Hamilton or Darius Washington to make everybody's job easier. I don't know why it took you this long to make these changes defensively, but they made those changes. Now, will these changes be enough to help them win? We're just going to have to wait and see. I still think there's one more change that needs to be made, and it involves Brandon Stephens. Brandon Stephens needs to be benched. You probably should look more towards starting Tre'Davious White over him. I think that you have a lineup right there where you have Nate Wiggins on one side, Tre'Davious White on the other side, and you can play Marlon Humphrey in the slot, and I think that works. And you can rotate and give snaps to Brandon Stephens just because you know you have to give snaps to Brandon Stephens. You're going to have to utilize your depth. I think that would be the perfect aspect to utilize here for the secondary in terms of your corners. I feel like Tre'Davious White should start over Brandon Stephens. Stephens has gotten cooked far too much consistently this year to continue to be in the starting lineup. But again, I don't make the choices. I don't make the decisions. That's up to Zachary Orr. People are suspecting that Brandon Stephens may be benched, and the only reason he hasn't been benched is one, Arthur Millett's been hurt for pretty much all the season, and two, Tre'Davious White recently got here, and it's going to take him time to get within the flow of the defense. Now, thanks to the bye week, that may be a different aspect. So you might see a potential situation versus the Giants where Tre'Davious White's getting a lot more snaps, or he might even start. We'll have to see. But the defense has made changes. I think there's one more change they could make, and I would like to see this team play more man than zone. But overall, the defense has made changes. And over the last 3 games, defensively, they've done their job. They still struggle here and there in terms of making stops in key situations, which you would love to see them do better in that position. You know, instead of giving up field goals or late touchdowns, you would love to see them just force punts or create turnovers, because they're not creating turnovers. Other than Marlon Humphrey, nobody's consistently creating turnovers on this defense. And that's a problem. I think that's an element they need to get back to. But for the most part, the defense has shown improvement. And because of these improvements, you feel a little bit better about the Ravens' chances. Next up, special teams. Special teams has been arguably the biggest issue for the Ravens this year. Many people will look at the defense and say, yes, the defense has been bad. But part of the defense being bad has to deal with the special teams being atrocious. The defense has been awful, but the special teams has been worse than them. And the special teams is directly responsible for some of the things we've seen with this defense. Do you know that the Ravens still remain to be the only team in the National Football League to give up multiple onside kick recoveries? That happened with our special teams. The Ravens special teams gave up multiple onside kick recoveries. That plays into the roles of teams coming back. Literally, because of the onside kick recovery, Dallas had life. And then it happened again and brought life to another team. You having these onside kick recoveries is giving these teams chances to try to come back in the game. That's hurting the defense. To make matters worse, the Ravens have 0 return game. It doesn't matter who they put out there. It doesn't matter if they try to put Wallace out there, who's been horrible at fielding punts this year. It doesn't matter if they're going to put out Keaton Mitchell, who hasn't done much in that aspect. It doesn't matter who they put out there to catch punts. They don't have any punt return game this year. None. And where they've been fielding these punts, it's been awful. Some of these terrible decisions, specifically from Wallace, in terms of how he's just letting the ball roll, some of those decisions have directly led to some issues with the offense. We literally got a safety because Wallace let the ball roll to like the 2-yard line. And next thing you know, bam, Derrick Henry in the end zone gets dropped. Safety. Your return game has not done a good job in putting you in positions to win. You have not been out there and had a lot of great field position because your return game has been non-existent. That is an aspect that hurts the team. But to make matters worse, the aspect of kicking. Dude, we've got no punting game. We've got little to no punting game. Jordan Stout is somehow punting the ball worse this year than what he was doing last year. Last year, there was a lot of optimism for Stout, and he was doing well punting the football. This year, I don't know what he's doing. He's taking a step back, and people are confused because he showed a lot of promise last year in the punting game. He was getting a lot of punts fielded with inside the 15, inside the 10. This year, bro, his punting game has been off, and he just doesn't seem like he has the juice this year, and I'm confused as to what's going on with the punting game there, because you wouldn't expect a young player to regress in the punting game. How do you show that potential last year, and then this year is just gone? I don't get it. I truly don't get it. So the kicking aspect in terms of punting has been atrocious, but it has been nothing in comparison to how the kicking game has been in totality. Justin Tucker is having the worst year of his career. It's been bad. He's missed, I think he's missed 7 kicks and 2 field goals, or maybe he's missed 5 kicks. He's 22 of 20. I believe he's missed 5 or 6 kicks, and then he's missed 2 extra points. Never in our wildest dreams did we ever expect to see Tucker be a liability. Justin Tucker, for the better part of a decade, has been the most important offensive weapon for us. He's been our primary scorer in a lot of games over the last decade. He has won us games with his kicking prowess. For him to be a liability, that changes the entire scope of the team. One of the greatest kickers, the former most accurate kicker, because he's lost that due to these missed kicks. A future first ballot Hall of Fame kicker to look like this? All we can do is hope the man returns to form, because the Ravens have shown they're not going to anyone else. They're not even thinking about bringing in other kickers. They're going to put their faith and trust in Tucker. So all we can do is put our faith and trust that Tucker can get it right. Now, if any of you guys have actually seen the recent interview with Justin Tucker, it's brought a lot of concerns, man. I don't know what's happening with him. Personally, I hope he's okay. I hope he's doing okay. I hope he's fine. I hope nothing is going on with him. I'm praying for him. But everyone looked at that video, man. Everybody saw the bags under his eyes. His hair was frizzled. Like, I had never seen Justin Tucker look like that before. I don't know if these missed kicks have really gotten to the point where it's stressing him. I don't know what's going on. They said he was pretty much at the facility for all of the bye week. He was close by. So my assumption of the situation is that Justin Tucker has really taken these missed kicks personally, because, again, when you're a great player and you're in a slump or playing bad, that starts to affect you mentally. And the only way to get out of that mental funk is to go out there and perform. And Tucker, being a perfectionist in what he does in his craft as a kicker, you know this is affecting him. Anytime he misses a kick, even if it in the past, when it was like we tried him with a 68-yard field goal, he just barely misses it because it doesn't have enough leg. That affects him. But we expected Tucker to still be able to make 50-plus yarders, 60-plus yarders. But this year, he's missed from 50-plus. He's missed from under 50. He's missed from 40-plus. He damn near has gotten close to missing from 30-plus. He's missed multiple extra points, so technically he has missed from 30-plus. It's been that kind of season for him, and it feels like it's taken a toll on him. So with the way he looked in his interview this week, the only thing I could think of, or at least I'm hoping to think of, is that Tucker's just been in the lab working all week. This has affected him, and so he's putting in the work as much as he can to get back to kicking the way he's supposed to be kicking. That's all I can think. That's all I can think. That is all I can think, man. That is all I can think. That is all I can think right now. So I'm hopeful that Justin Tucker is able to get back to form. But that's really all that needs to be said about that, because the special teams have been atrocious. And until they perform better, you can't look at this team and say, oh, yeah, they can get it done or do this or do that. No, the concerns for the team will still be here because of the issues we pointed out with the defense, with special teams, with the lack of discipline and penalties. And then finally we get to the last topic here for the most part, before we get into those mini topics. The offense. It's really funny how this team is so undisciplined. It's funny how they just can't play consistent as a football team. The offense for much of the season has been carrying this atrocious defense. If Lamar and Derrick Henry weren't putting up damn near career numbers, we would be a team under 500. The difference between us and being us right now being in the playoffs and us not being in the playoffs is those 2 games against Cincinnati. Cincinnati could be 7-6 right now, and we could be sitting here at 6-7. That's how crazy those 2 games are. But we won them, so you just take that as you will. But those games, offense had to carry heavily, and the offense for much of this year has done its job. But over the last few weeks, something's been off with the offense. Something has absolutely been off with the offense. You saw it with the Steelers game. You saw it with the Eagles game. Something has been relatively off with the Ravens offense. You even saw it with the Browns game. For some reason, Baltimore is coming out here offensively and getting off to slow starts. Now, in the Eagles game, they didn't get off to a slow start. But after they put up 9 points, they disappeared. My theory on the Ravens continues to stand tall. Because the second Tucker missed that extra point after the Mark Andrews touchdown, everything went to hell for the Ravens. My theory and my statement that I've made about the Ravens in terms of them unraveling as a team and not playing the same as soon as a mistake is made continues to hold up. When you look at the Steelers game, when you look at the Browns game, when you look at the Raiders game, it just seems like if an early mistake is made, the Ravens crumble. In the Steelers game, Derrick Henry fumbles on the second snap, and the Ravens offense never gets themselves together. I don't know why this has been a consistent thing for the Ravens, and I don't know what it's going to take for this to stop being a thing for the Ravens. But for some reason, if Baltimore makes a mistake early on, they're in the funk. They're in a funk for the rest of the game, and they can't get it together. And we've seen in the last few games, any sort of mistake the team makes, it affects the offense for no reason. The defense is getting it together as the offense is beginning to unravel. And when you're seeing how the offense is beginning to unravel, it all starts with the offensive line. If anybody's been watching film, you would understand why a majority of the fan base is frustrated with the fact that Faalele and Mekari continue to be in. Because Ronnie Stanley's having an all-pro year, Tyler Linderbaum's one of the best centers in football, and Roger Rosengarten is having a really good rookie year. So you don't have any problem with your centers, and you don't have any problem with your tackles. It's your guard play. Your guard play has been the biggest issue for you all season. And the thing about it is, the guard play hasn't been terrible, but it's been exposed against a certain type of defense. What is that certain type of defense? Easy. When the Ravens' offensive line goes up against tough physical front sevens, the interior line begins to collapse and they can't handle themselves. So what are those physical type of front sevens? Kansas City, that's a physical front seven. Cleveland, that's a physical front seven. Pittsburgh, that's a physical front seven. Philadelphia, that's a physical front seven. They cannot deal with physicality. They can't. Not on a consistent basis. And it continues to show itself because when they match up with these physical front sevens, even though you'll see Linderbaum doing his job, even though you'll see Roger Rosengarten doing his job, even if you'll see Ronnie Stanley doing his job, the offensive line still crumbles because the interior pressure is doing a poor job. And all of a sudden, because Mekari or Faalele is getting smoked, Lamar Jackson's now got to scramble, or he ends up getting sacked because he tries to step up in the pocket, boom, dropped. Or he gets grabbed and he's getting pulled down. The interior offensive line has been an issue, and it has been the main catalyst to killing a lot of these drives. If you've watched Lamar Jackson this year, you would see that he's been taking a lot of deep dropbacks, a lot more deep dropbacks in comparison to previous years. And you'll be like, why is Lamar going out there and taking these 10-step dropbacks? Well, it's simple. He can't take a 3-step dropback. With this offensive line, with the interior pressure, he can't take a 3-step drop back because the offensive line isn't good enough to hold up long enough for him to even try to run a 3-step drop back. Where he could take a 3-step drop back and then scan he can't do that with this offensive line. He can't. The interior pressure is problematic. Now, if it was with the edges, he could attempt to do that. But when it's your interior pressure, you can't take a 3-step drop back when your guards can't block consistently. So he's got to take a deep drop back because he knows that interior offensive line can't hold. He's got to get ready to scramble to buy time. And that's why he's been taking a lot deep step dropbacks. Even in play action, he's doing that at times. Because the guard play has not been consistent enough to protect him. So he has to take those extra steps to buy him time. And I'll say it, when he starts taking those extra steps, guess what? His mechanics, they start to be affected. He can't step into the throw as much as he wants to because he's not fully comfortable. When Lamar can play in rhythm and this offense can play in rhythm, especially when they use play action, Lamar's killing teams. But when he's got to take those deep dropbacks and he's not able to fully step into some of his throws or fully be comfortable in the pocket because the interior offensive line isn't doing a good job protecting him, then guess what? You're going to get the messy plays you're getting. And that is an issue that we've been seeing all year. You would hope a smart football team would do something about it, but we have a head coach that is stubborn and will choose to stick with his guys and die with them over putting in somebody that could help us just because he has a personal vendetta against them. We don't know why Ben Cleveland won't get an opportunity at right guard. We don't know why Andrew Voorhees won't be put back out there despite the fact that Mekari keeps getting cooked and he keeps committing penalties as an offensive lineman. He's one of the most penalized guards in the league, but we keep him out here instead of putting Voorhees in. A smart football team would put the best players available out there to give themselves the best chance to win. But we have a coach that likes his guys, so he'll stick with his guys until they all eventually fall apart. And he'll die with the fire over putting in the guys that can give you the best chance to win. That is who our head coach is. So the guard play has been the biggest catalyst that has killed everything with the offensive line. From there, you got to take a look at the receiving core. And there seems to be some sort of issue with the receiving core in terms of some sort of miscommunication. And yes, it starts with the Diontae Johnson situation, as well as the Ravens not really utilizing their weapons the way they should be utilizing it. Everybody knows Flowers and Bateman is 1 and 2. But who's that number 3 spot? For some reason, it's been Nelson Agholor. Nelson Agholor hasn't really had much of a great year, and he's made a lot of mistakes out there as a blocker that has put the Ravens in an unfortunate situation. We saw the first mistake he made in week 1 when he didn't block a wide open defender on 4th down. If this dude, Nelson Agholor, makes that block, Zay Flowers picks up a 1st down. They went for it on 4th and 5 in the first game against Kansas City. All Agholor has to do is make a block. With Zay Flowers' speed, it's a 1st down and they keep the drive alive. Instead, he whiffs on a block. Zay Flowers is one-on-one with the defender, and the defender gets the best of him. He's short in the turnover on downs. Nelson Agholor has been doing that consistently throughout the season. On the 2-point conversion, he was supposed to make a block, which would open things up on the outside for Lamar to take it himself. He misses that block. We don't get the 2-point conversion. This guy has been making mistakes out there consistently. Lamar threw 2 deep balls to him in the Eagles game. Both were in his hands, both dropped. He's making a lot of mistakes out there, but they keep keeping him out there and keep putting him out there on snaps. Why? They brought a guy in Diontae Johnson, and for some reason, they choose not to utilize him on the field. And because they have chosen not to utilize him on the field, he is now spazzed out, and now he's suspended. And this is a guy that is fighting for a contract. He is fighting for a contract, fighting for his future, for his family. You bring him to Baltimore so that he can come be a weapon in this offense. He should have been wide receiver 3. But instead, he's not being utilized. And that frustration is built to where he's now suspended. Now, both Zay and Bateman said it's not a distraction. We'll welcome him back when he's off suspension. But we will see in the final 4 games how this is going to go. He didn't practice, obviously, because he's suspended. But he'll be back for the Steelers game. Will we see him on the field? I don't know. But Nelson Agholor should not be your wide receiver 3. If it's not going to be Diontae Johnson, then I don't see why you don't give Wallace those snaps. Tyler Wallace has made plays this year. He's made plays this year, and he's been useful when he's been out there. If they're going to sit back and be stubborn and not put in Diontae Johnson, then why not bench Nelson Aguilar or minimize his snaps and give those snaps to Tylan Wallace, who's been useful when he's been out there? He's made catches, he's made plays when he's been out there. Why is he not getting more snaps? If you're not going to play Deontay Johnson, why not give that man more snaps? I don't understand. It's so weird. The wide receiver situation has just been weird. Shout out to Bragging Rights Sports with the $5 donation. I appreciate it, brother. If we're going to beat Pittsburgh in 2 weeks, we have to wear our black on black uniforms because at this rate, it's the only way we can beat them straight up. Even with the black on black. I don't know if the black on black will be enough to get rid of all that black magic that the Steelers have. You would hope, but I don't know. But yeah, the receiving core, it's been weird. We know the two guys, but past those two guys, you need that third guy to be able to deliver when you can't get the ball to Bateman and you can't get the ball to Flowers. And Deontay Johnson was supposed to be that guy, but now they're not utilizing him. That whole situation has just been weird. And until we get some clearance on that, the receiving aspect will be a concern. You still have Andrews, you still have Likely, and of course Flowers and Bateman are there. So it's not a major concern, but the fact that Deontay Johnson got suspended definitely brought a story as to how the locker room is looking, and it brought some level of concerns for the most part. No question, it brought some level of concerns. So that was one that had to be addressed. Then you have to go to two people. Number one, we start with Todd Monken. Number two will be Lamar Jackson. Let's start with Monken. Monken has been a great offensive coordinator, and you see what he's capable of as an offensive coordinator. But if there's two things we have to sit back and criticize Todd Monken for that we're seeing right now, it would have to be his lack of creativity as an offensive coordinator and his situational play calling. Number one, with the lack of creativity, has to start with Derrick Henry. It has become way too predictable as to how the Ravens offense operates with Derrick Henry out there. Everybody and their mother knows 9 times out of 10, if Derrick Henry's in the game, he's getting the football. Whether you're going to run it up the gut or you're going to toss it out to the outside, everybody knows when Derrick Henry's out there, he's going to be handed the football. You're damn near telling teams that when Derrick Henry's out there, he's going to run the ball and get the rock. You've got to be more creative with how you're using Derrick Henry and disguising that. It's too predictable that teams are realizing it. When Derrick Henry's not out there, 9 times out of 10, they know Lamar's going to pass this thing. You have not been as creative as you should be. You've got arguably the most dangerous duo in football in Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. And you have not done a great job. I'm not going to say you haven't done a good job because both of them are having great years. But you have not done a great job in being creative with that dynamic duo. The way these two should be taking advantage of defenses, we haven't been able to see it. At least not as consistently as we need it to be. And that lack of creativity has cost them at times with the play calling because teams will predict, okay, Derrick Henry's in, we know he's going to run it. Derrick Henry's not in, Justice Hill's in, oh, okay, he's going to pass block, Lamar's about to air this thing out. We can back up in coverage. So defenses are predicting it. I feel like you need to be a little bit less predictable. Start running more screens with Derrick Henry out there. Start doing more fakes with Derrick Henry out there. One of the things that helped out is when they absolutely used Derrick Henry in the play-action passing game. When you have Lamar under center, he fakes it to Derrick Henry. That has been the most effective aspect of offense for us because we just gained so much yardage. It just makes the receiver's job easier. It makes Lamar's job easier. We need to be running a lot more play action from under center. That is something the Ravens have to get back to. This drop back passing with Lamar is not working because you don't have the guards to protect him and you're being way too predictable with the play calling. So that's becoming problematic. We need to see Todd Monken get more creative with how he's going to utilize Derrick Henry when he's out there with Lamar Jackson. We haven't seen much of it. We need to see that. Secondly, situational football. I don't care what the circumstance is. I hold this on Monken, but I also do hold some of this on Harbaugh as the head coach of this National Football Team. I don't care what the circumstances is. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care what the score is. Late in the game, with the game on the line, there is absolutely zero excuse not to have Derrick Henry out there. We've had games this year where Derrick Henry has been standing on the sideline in fourth quarters. A lot of times in those games, we've lost. You have Derrick Henry standing on the sideline, the second best player on this team, your second best offensive weapon. He's standing on the sideline in fourth quarters. Why? I don't care what situation you're in. Derrick Henry, late in games, should be in the game. Is that their game plan for the playoffs? Did you bring Derrick Henry here so he could stand on the sideline in fourth quarters and not be utilized when he could be a help out there? Do you know what Derrick Henry can do in the screen game? Justice Hill is great in the screen game, but this is Derrick Henry. Do you know how he could be useful as a pass blocker? Because he's done it. Funny enough, when in the small times he's been a pass blocker, he's been one of the best running back pass blockers in the league. It's so crazy how that's been the case. And if you've seen how he's performed when they've utilized him in a screen game, it's been effective because, again, it's Derrick Henry one-on-one. Why is he not out there in these fourth quarter situations? I love Justice Hill. Justice Hill's been with this team since 2019. His progression from where he was when he was first drafted to where he is now as an intricate part of this offense, as a legit weapon, I appreciate everything he brings to the table. I love what Justice Hill brings to this team. But in late game situations, the best players need to be out there. And there's no reason why in late game situations, Derrick Henry's standing on the sideline and Justice Hill's in the game. What type of idiotic play calling is that, where your second best offensive weapon is not standing next to your best offensive weapon with the game on the line? That is what I talk about when it comes to situational football. These are two things that Todd Monken has done all season that has been part of the detriment of this Ravens squad. And it's part of why they've lost games. It's also part of why the media has actively cooked him on multiple occasions. And why they say the biggest obstacle to the Ravens is their offensive coordinator. Even though he is a good to really good to hell, even great at times offensive coordinator, and we've been having a great season. When it comes to your creativity and situational play calling, you have been poor in both those elements. And until you improve in that, Baltimore will not be able to reach their full potential. And I would be highly concerned with what they could potentially be able to do come playoff time. Last but not least, at least in terms of the offense, before we get to the final guy, Lamar Jackson. It's great to know that there's nothing I really have to majorly say about Lamar Jackson from a negative aspect. He's having a career year. I don't know what else to tell you. He's having a career year. He's going to surpass any of the numbers he put up in either one of his MVP seasons. This is going to be the first year he throws for over 4,000 yards. He's probably going to throw for nearly 40 touchdowns, depending on how these final four games go. Lamar Jackson is going to put up his best statistical season of his career. He's already on pace for it. It's a historical season. MVP, no MVP, we don't give a damn about that. He is on pace to putting up a historical season and easily the best season of his own career. So there's not much to really nitpick. 3 interceptions on the season. Not one of those interceptions were his fault. He's been highly accurate with the ball. He's been explosive with the football in the passing game. He's taken care of the football for much of the season, though he has his occasional turnover here and there with the fumbles whenever he tends to keep it. It's something he's always had in his career. Lamar has been A+ this year. Fantastic. But if there's anything we do have to nitpick from Lamar, it would have to be the fact that he's holding back. And I get why he's holding back. I understand why he's holding back. Because he himself said it Last year in the AFC Championship game, he didn't have his legs with him. He was hurt. He was dealing with some nagging injury, which of course makes sense. Everybody's dealing with some nagging injury at that point. You just got to gut it out and play. But he himself said he was dealing with something there. He didn't have his legs in that game. He felt if he had his legs, he would have been running a whole lot more. He would have exploited a lot of the holes and a lot of the lanes that the Chiefs gave him. He would have exploited those. But he didn't have his legs with him. So Lamar seems like when he decided to kind of shred these pounds and just slim down, he decided he was going to play this season with that focus and mindset of preserving his legs until January. So Lamar has been holding back in the element of taking off and utilizing his legs. Lamar hasn't lost the ability to scramble. He can do it anytime he wants. And we all know he can. Nobody can stop Lamar Jackson if he wants to scramble out of the pocket. And we know the magic that he can produce when he does that. But we've mentioned it. Lamar, for much of the season, has been reluctant. It's one thing if all season he just hasn't been taken off. But nobody forgot what he did in the Kansas City game. Do you think anybody forgot when he threw for 272 and ran for 125? You thought we forgot when he ran all over the Chiefs' defense in week 1? When he took those lanes and utilized the wheels and ran for over 100 yards? Nobody forgot that. So we know what he's capable of. We know he can still utilize the wheels and take off. But Lamar has purposely chosen to hold himself back because he wants to preserve his legs for the playoffs. And while I do understand the notion in doing that, you also got to understand that in some of these games, if Lamar would have utilized his legs and taken off, the result could have been different. When nothing's open, when the offensive line's crumbling, if Lamar would have chosen to activate that superhero mode, it could have been different. Lamar has to be Lamar. There's 4 games left. You're not guaranteed a playoff spot just yet. And I know he wants to preserve his legs for the playoffs. But Lamar, you have to go out there and be you. We know what you're capable of as a dual threat quarterback. You have to be able to use all of your arsenals. You still go out there, you still be safe, you still be precautious to make sure you stay healthy. Because again, part of why you've chosen to keep your legs is you didn't want to take those shots. Because those shots weren't going to do any serious harm to you, but those shots can build up within the season. And you don't want to go into a playoff game sore. I get it. Which is why you've been holding back, which is why you've been healthy this year in terms of not really being sore and your legs being here for much of the season. So I get it. But Lamar, you have to go be yourself. Your mother already gave you the speech. There's nothing I or anybody else needs to say to you. Your mother already cussed you out for not taking those lanes and taking off and utilizing the wheels and being Lamar Jackson. Your mother already got on your case for that. So I expect Lamar to come out here on demon time. And what better opponent to come out on demon time than the Giants, who are just reeling. So I expect Lamar these final 4 games to come out on demon time. The only thing I got to say about him is don't hold back. I get there's 4 games left, but you got to start treating these 4 games like playoff games. You have not earned a playoff spot. You have not earned a playoff spot. You have not earned a playoff spot. So you, my friend, got to go be Superman for these 4 games to go make sure you can earn that playoff spot. Be careful, but you got to go be Superman. You got to go be Lamar Jackson. If it ain't there, buddy, take off. If it ain't there, utilize your gift. Utilize your natural talent. Utilize your special ability. Turn on that superhero mode and go do you. Because these games now should be treated as playoff games. And if you treat these as playoff games, you will be better prepared for the postseason. That's all I got to say about Lamar. That's it. Just, you don't need to hold back anymore. That's really all I have to say about him. Last but not least, John Harbaugh. Everything has been said about John. I don't know what else we could do. I don't like to beat a dead horse. I've had my comments on John. The fan base has had their comments on John. I've made videos about John Harbaugh. I've made live streams that involve John Harbaugh. There's nothing else I need to really say about John. The only thing left for me to discuss about John Harbaugh is for me to implore the man to put his ego aside for the sake of the team. You cannot continue to keep Faalele and Mekari out there to get Lamar Jackson killed. You keep telling us about how much you love these players. And he's such a players coach, and he loves his guys, and his guys love him back. You, as a head coach, you've got to make the tough choices. You got to make the tough decisions. You're not fooling anybody. The film is out there. We can all see what these guys are doing. You're not fooling anybody. You're not convincing anybody. We see what Faalele's doing out there. We see what Mekari's doing out there. You need to put your ego and pride aside for the sake of the team. If you're not willing to do that, then you will be the sole reason why this team does nothing come January. There will be another one and done team because you refuse to put your pride and ego aside. I don't know what personal vendetta or what beef you've got with Ben Cleveland, but the guy deserves an opportunity to play as the right guard. With Faalele being as inconsistent as he's been, and at times being poor, Ben deserved a chance. And I don't know why Voorhees got out of the lineup. He got hurt, then you put Mekari in, and Mekari's been there since. And I don't know why Voorhees has not gotten his job back since. Not saying Voorhees has been fantastic, but I can argue when he's been out there, he's been somewhat more consistent, and at least better, and not picking up penalties as compared to Mekari. So why are you not putting your best guys out there? And if you're going to try to convince us that you are putting your best guys out there, then you're lying to everybody. And that's your ego talking, because those are your guys. All I could do with John is implore him to please do right by your quarterback. Do right by this team and make the changes needed in the offensive line. Do it before it's too late. If you're not willing to make those changes, we can accept the first round exit if it means you're gone. But unfortunately, he won't make those changes. His ego's too big. The Ravens will most likely be a first round exit. And he still won't be gone because EDC doesn't have the guts to fire his neighbor. And Steve only cares about money. He could care less what happens about this team's chances to actually win a championship. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. For the most part, in terms of speaking on every aspect here of the Ravens. We've talked about the aspects that's held them back, and then we've talked about what they need to do to put themselves in the best position to win. Like the title says, it's now or never. This is going to define your season. Now, you're not going to go out there and make a statement against the Giants. You know, if the Ravens go out there, blow out, and dominate the Giants, you make no statement. But if you go out there and struggle with the Giants, oh, you make a huge statement. This team is due for a first-round exit if you can't beat the Giants. If you don't go out there and blow out the Giants, everybody's going to know that this Ravens team is prime. They're primely set up for a disappointing first-round exit. And nobody will be shocked. But past that game against the Giants, you got Pittsburgh coming into Baltimore. Are you going to make a statement? You've got the Texans. Well, you got to go to Houston on Christmas. Are you going to make a statement? Are you going to secure yourself a playoff spot? And come January, whether you're at home or on the road, what is this team going to be made of? You have all the adversity that the 2023 Ravens were lacking, this 2024 Ravens team has. How are you going to define your season? It comes down to this final month. It's now or never for the Ravens. Either answer the call and get it done, or fall short, head back to the drawing board, and have your franchise quarterback frustrated that another year was wasted. And remember, you only have Derrick Henry for 2 years, So this duo may not even be here much longer. What are you going to do? You can't waste Derrick Henry's year with Lamar. What are you going to do? So it's now or never. Defense has to figure it out. Special teams has to get it together. Offense has to make some changes. Coaching staff has to change their mentality. Your head coach needs to put his ego to the side. If these things can happen, by all means, they can go on a run. But because most of us know how the Ravens operate, especially under the John Harbaugh era, we don't expect these changes to be made. We don't expect much from this team. And we know they'll most likely be a first-round exit because John Harbaugh's ego is so inflated, he's willing to let this team go down as a first-round exit just because he'll play his guys. And Todd Monken will continue to have Derrick Henry stand on the sidelines in key games, and the Ravens will find a way to struggle in the most opportune situations, which could eventually cost them in the playoffs. Then we'll be sitting here in the offseason frustrated that nothing's going to change because John Harbaugh will be back for the 2025 season. I hope the Ravens prove me wrong, but they have matched my expectations for years now, and I've yet to see a situation where they have not. I've yet to see them exceed them. The closest they came was last year. Had they at least gotten to the Super Bowl, I could sit back and say, well, you got to the bowl. You exceeded my expectations. But you fell short at home. So what can I say? And now this year, you might be an all-road team. You might not even win your division. You may have to go on the road starting off at Pittsburgh. So much about this team. So much about this team. So, yeah, that's it. That's really all I got to say. It's a situation where you got to look at your head coach and say, hey, man, it's up to you. I'm going to take a look at some of these comments before I head on out, see what you guys are feeling. Good evening. It's game time, and also it's always good to see a Cowboys collapse. I'm not going to lie. I could care about the Cowboys. I could care less about the Cowboys this season. I don't really care. I don't care. I mean, the joke has gotten old and stale, just like the Cowboys. I don't really feel the need to beat up on them right now, especially with the way my football team's looking. I think we can go on a serious run. The keys are there for the Ravens to go on a serious run. It's up to them to take those keys and drive themselves to the destination. It's up to them to take advantage of the opportunities given to them. They have the talent to win. They have the talent to win. They need to put everything together. And that involves everybody locking in, leadership being high, and changes being made for the sake of everybody. But, unfortunately, this is the John Harbaugh-led Ravens, so I don't think much of that's going to happen. If you prove me wrong, you prove me wrong, but you've been proving me right for years. So, I don't see anything different this year. That's why I have zero expectations, and that's why I'm not pissed off with how things have gone. Get back against the Giants and go on a run similar to earlier this season. You can hope for that, but we'll see. Lamar has to step up versus the Steelers. It's not just a Lamar thing. The team has to step up against the Steelers. Defense showcase they can step up against the Steelers. Can the offense step up against the Steelers? Lamar can't do anything if he throws the ball to Justice Hill and Justice Hill lets it get snatched from him. That's Justice Hill letting the ball get snatched from him. Lamar can't do anything if he passes the ball to Isaiah Likely and Likely lets Patrick Williams come in and strip him. There's nothing Lamar can do against that. When you're giving your playmakers the ball and they can't hold on to it, that has nothing to deal with the quarterback. That's not his fault. So it's not Lamar has to step up. The Ravens have to step up against the Steelers. Detroit is a crash-out team, and I love them for it. Dan Campbell's my favorite head coach, and I really do enjoy watching the Lions play. I hope they get to the Super Bowl because it's been a fun year watching the Lions. Ravens are one and done and actually have a chance to miss the playoffs. This team needs to go crazy in the next few weeks. We are most likely going to be a 5th seed, maybe less. I mean, the expectation at this point is they will be the 5th seed if they win 2 games. And if they get a matchup against Houston, I think they could win that matchup. But past Houston, I don't know. This team is playing too kind to the competition. Honestly, I think if you look at it in some cases, there are I think I saw something somewhere where somebody said they're like a leveled up version of the Miami Dolphins. Like the Ravens are a leveled up version of the Miami Dolphins. They can play in the cold. They can beat tough teams, but they can't beat the toughest teams. They can't beat the most physical teams. So they can beat tough teams. They're a tough team. They can beat tough teams. They can play in any weather, but they can't beat the toughest of teams. They can't beat the most physical of teams. And sometimes you'll look at the Ravens and you'll think, man, they're more finesse than physical. So I don't know who said they were a more physical or a leveled up version of the Miami Dolphins, but you might be right. You might be right, which means doom potentially for the Ravens because it means you're not going to win anything. Did you see the video of Tucker today? He had two. Yeah, I saw that. He's definitely. I spoke about this earlier. He's definitely going through something. I just hope he's okay. That's all I'm worried about. We need to go get Brandon Aubrey from Dallas next year. He's up for a new contract. Can't talk about any off-season stuff until this season's over. We got 4 guaranteed games left. Past that, I can't promise anything. So, yeah, we got 4 guaranteed games left, and then after that, we'll see where the Ravens are. If they somehow make the playoffs, we'll have that extra guaranteed game, and if they can go farther than that, we'll see how far they can take this train. Is this a Q&A? I'm looking to do the Q&A. I'm going to see if I can do the Q&A on Thursday. I'll just probably pop that Q&A up on Thursday. We just got back from the bye week, so I'll probably do the Q&A on Thursday. Honestly, I think Wallace should take the number 3 spot from Aguilar. I've said if you're not going to use Deontay Johnson as that number 3, then give it to Tylan Wallace. He deserves the opportunity. Every time Wallace is on the field in place of Aguilar, he makes a play, a game-changing play. Does Harbaugh not see that? Again, Harbaugh has an inflated ego and will choose to stick with his guys over playing the best possible guys out there. But you know, the team loves him. He loves his guys and they love him back. I think you got to be a patient player to have Harbaugh as your coach. It is what it is, man. This is why Ray and Ed and others in 2012, or when he became coach, didn't like him, and because he didn't play the best players, so they took things into their hands and also had a players' mutiny. I would love for that to happen this year, but again, Harbaugh has too much power. It's different when he didn't have the championship, but he's had a championship and he's been in Baltimore longer than any of these players here currently. So they don't have any of the power. He couldn't do that with Ray and Ed because Ray Lewis and Ed Reed had already been here a number of years and had already established themselves as 2 of the best players in their game, and they were the leaders of that locker room. So John couldn't just come in and do his bully routine and be like, I'm going to do whatever I want. He couldn't do that with Ed and Ray because they were already established leaders here before John came to join up. So John knew he couldn't do that with them. But he's been here longer than anybody else on this roster. So he has complete freedom and control to do whatever he wants, and nobody on this roster can check him because that championship has given them power to where if you speak up, you'll just get benched. If you say this guy should play with that guy, see what happens to your playing time. So that's just unfortunate. They haven't used Keaton Mitchell. Yeah, I don't even know if they're going to look to get him back into order. They keep saying they are, but we haven't seen the opportunities there. Got to put more blame on the receivers not being able to get open against physical defenses too. Lamar be helping them out, holding the ball long. Yeah, at times you don't see guys getting open, but there are moments when you look at the film and guys, well, specifically Zay Flowers is getting open, but either at that point Lamar's running for his life so he can't do anything, or Lamar just missed him. Or by the time Lamar looked for him, it was already too late. Would anybody be surprised if the Ravens crapped the bed this week against the Giants? No. I think this team is capable of beating any team in the National Football League, just like they're capable of losing to any team in the National Football League. They've proven that. They've beaten the Buffalo Bills. Like, you look at the Wizards, they've beaten the Buffalo Bills, they dominated the Broncos, they beat up on the Chargers, beat up on the Bucks. They've beaten teams over 500. You look at their schedule, but they're also capable of losing to anybody, such as the Browns, such as the Raiders. So they can lose to anybody, man. Oi. Best of luck to you guys. Appreciate it. If the playoffs started today, I think they face Houston. I'd prefer Houston. Houston's the only team that's more of a mess right now playoff-wise than us. So you might be able to catch them leaning because they're in a worse situation than we are. And you might be able to steal that. Wouldn't be easy, but you might be able to steal that. Other than that, most teams can get the best of Baltimore because, we are who we are. That's all I got to say for that. You see how Harbaugh was snappy at the media today? What's up with that? It was funny. People have already started with their conspiracy theories. And apparently y'all are just professional body language readers. from what I'm getting from y'all, which I take this with a grain of salt. Y'all looking at him acting like that, and apparently y'all feel he's either getting too chippy or he's getting a bit too flustered, which means something was told to him that he didn't like. And some of y'all are trying to speculate that, oh, he acting like that because something was told to him that didn't really rock with him, i.e. his job could be on the line. I've seen so many people look at that press conference and say, hey, John acted a bit too snappy. Is his job on the line? I don't know why he acted like that. In all honesty, I think he gets really annoyed when he has to answer questions he don't like. So I think as soon as they started bringing up the Deontay Johnson stuff, his mood immediately changed. And when they asked him back-to-back questions involving Deontay Johnson and he gave the same answer, he didn't want to be there anymore. Once they brought up Deontay Johnson, his entire demeanor changed. So I think at that point, he was just annoyed that the media would even dare to bring up Deontay Johnson when they already told y'all they were not going to speak on it moving forward. So the media already got on his nerves early on. But hey, I'm going to leave you guys as the body language experts to try to speculate that his job's on the line now. Lamar can check him. I mean, he could look to check him. He can put his input. Guys, Lamar's not that type of player. Okay? Lamar's not Tom, where he's willing to yell at the head coach and say this and that. Because Tom could do that with Belichick. And even though Belichick would still do whatever he wants, he would still listen to the input of Tom. And they would still work off of each other. Lamar's not going to yell at Harbaugh and say, listen, I want Ben Cleveland and Andrew Voorhees in now. He's not doing that, okay? He's not. He's not. That's not how Lamar operates. So you could say Lamar can check him. Lamar's not doing that. He's just going to try to motivate the people that are out on the field. Lamar's never had that type of personality. Lamar must go out versus the Steelers in a couple weeks. I need a Jackson 5 performance. Against the Steelers? Are you crazy? You think Lamar's putting up a Jackson 5 against the Steelers defense? Please stop. Hope for a good performance and a win, but a Jackson 5 against the Steelers defense is not happening. Not happening in this or the next world. We don't even need to pretend. That's just flat out not happening. A Jackson 5 against that Steelers defense? In what world do you think they're putting up a Jackson 5 against that defense? Let's we can hope for a lot of things, but we got to be realistic here. That's not happening. That's just not happening. I do hope we're able to beat them in 2 weeks. We'll see, though. Anyway, guys, that is all I have for you here today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. The Ravens are back this week, so we are back to talking about the Ravens as we get ready for the Giants game. Any updates and stuff we'll probably be discussing. Hopefully there are changes, but I have no expectations of the Ravens, so I don't expect anything to change. And I can't wait for the Ravens to show their struggles against the Giants and piss the fan base off even more. We got 4 more guaranteed games, and if we win 2 of them, we might have a 5th extra game. So we'll just take it one game at a time, finish off this season on the right note, clinch a playoff spot, and then see what we can do in the tournament come January. That's all you can do at this point. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to head on out of here. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be, back this week. Definitely got to give you guys that Q&A because I know y'all have some questions to ask me. So I'll run the Q&A for probably like 30, 45, maybe even an hour, depending on how I'm feeling on Thursday. So yeah, the game will be happening, and I might take that time to do some of the Q&A while I'm watching a few things here. So yeah, just be on the lookout for the Q&A. And yeah, I will see you guys later. It is 11:19. I got work in the morning, and I've been here for over an hour. God, I don't know why I do this to myself, but hey, it's the NFL season. If I don't do this now, I'm not doing it in the off season. So it is. Anyway, guys, take care. Enjoy the rest of your night. Be sure to stay safe, and peace out.